Small Pearl-bordered Fritillary, found in open lightly grazed woodland, moorland and damp grassland, recorded in many parts of Moray from the coast to the uplands, and flies from late June through July. Eggs are laid singly on or near violets, which are the caterpillar's food. They hibernate in withered vegetation during the winter. Grayling, found in dry coastal grassland, dunes and cliffs between Findhorn and Cullen. They have excellent camouflage when resting on the ground with their wings closed over their backs. Flies in July and August, laying eggs on grasses which are the caterpillar's food plant. Overwinters as a caterpillar. Clouded yellow, a migratory species from southern Europe, found in open grassy countryside. Usually scarce throughout the UK, but occasionally numerous in the south in clouded yellow years. Only a few Moray records near the coast. Flies between May and August. Breeds in the south of England, where 1 or 2 generations of caterpillars feed on legumes such as clover. Small Tortoiseshell, widespread in most habitats throughout Moray. Flies between April and October. Batches of 60 to 100 eggs are laid on nettles. Parasitic flies and wasps lay eggs in the caterpillars where they hatch, and the larva eats the caterpillar while it's still alive. Overwinters as an adult in holes in trees, garden sheds, etc. Fattens up by feeding in gardens before hibernation. Peacock. This butterfly is a recent arrival in Moray since 2000, but is now widespread and common, especially in the coastal lowlands. Flies during April to September. Females lay batches of 300 or more eggs on nettles. Caterpillars feed together in a web. Hibernates as an adult after fattening up on nectar from garden flowers. Adults defend themselves from predators such as mice by flashing their owl-like eye spots and hissing. Small copper. Prefers warm, dry areas such as banks, road verges and heaths. Widespread in Moray, but commonest along the coast. Has become scarcer and more local in recent years. Flies between May and September in 2 generations. Males defend a small territory on the ground from which they chase off other males and pursue females. Overwinters as a caterpillar which feeds on sorrel. Small blue. Forms discrete colonies in sunny dune slacks with sparse vegetation, mostly along the coast in Moray. Sometimes also on rocky sea cliffs. Flies in June over patches of kidney vetch, which is the food of the caterpillars. The female lays a single egg in a flower head bud. The caterpillar feeds on the developing seeds and can be cannibalistic if it meets another caterpillar. Green-veined white prefers damp grassland, marshes and woodland. This is Moray's most widespread and numerous butterfly. Flies between mid-April and September in 2 overlapping generations. During mating, the male transfers a package of protein and other nutrients into the female. The male then applies an anti-aphrodisiac to the female to deter other males. Common blue. Found in dunes, heath and rough pasture. Widespread in Moray. 1 generation of adults flies in July and August. Caterpillars feed on bird's-foot trefoil before hibernating over the winter. Caterpillars are sometimes tended by ants, which they attract by secretions and by making unusual drumming noises. Coma. Has only recently colonised Scotland, still spreading north with several records in Aberdeenshire and at least 1 in Moray. Flies around woods, hedgerows and gardens, named because of the white mark on the underwing. Wing shape, especially when the wing is closed, provides excellent camouflage. The caterpillar mimics a bird as though it was dropping. Large white. A partial migrant found in all habitats except mountainous areas. Widespread over most of Moray, breeding in gardens and turnip fields. Flies in 2 generations between April and September. The forewing of the male is plain, while that of the female has dark spots. While mating, the male coats the female with a chemical that deters other males. Pearl-bordered Fritillary. Found in dry sheltered grassland and woodland clearings. A scarce species in Moray, found mostly in the western lowlands and up Speyside. Flies in May and June. Overwinters as a caterpillar whose food plant is violet. Painted lady, a migrant from the desert edges of North Africa. Numbers vary from year to year. Sometimes huge swarms arrive in Britain, such as in 2009, when 28 million were estimated to have crossed the south coast of England on the 23rd to 24th of May. In these years, painted ladies are very common in Moray, except for the high uplands. Flies between May and October. Caterpillars feed on thistles. Ringlet, a butterfly of damp grassland and cool woodland rides, common in Moray since about 2000, following a major northwards range expansion. Number of wing spots very variable, most visible on the underside. Flies in one short generation in July and August. Females squirt their eggs into the air while perched on a tall grass stem or even while hovering in flight. Dingy Skipper, an uncommon species absent from most of Scotland, but with a stronghold along the southern coast of the Moray Firth, where it prefers sheltered warm heath and dunes. A single generation of adults flies in May and June. The caterpillars feed on bird's foot trefoil and hibernate in a nest of leaves before forming a chrysalis in spring. Small Heath, a widespread inhabitant of dry grassland, common in Moray. In Scotland there is only a single generation which flies from June to August. The males live for only 1 or 2 weeks. They gather in communal displays near some landmark such as a bush or small tree, to which the females are attracted. The caterpillar feeds on grasses before hibernating over the winter. Small white mainly occurs in Moray as a migrant, with numbers variable from year to year. Found mainly in gardens near the coast. Flies between April and September in 2 generations. During mating, the male transfers 2 types of sperm, live sperm to fertilize the eggs and infertile sperm that contains nutrients that are absorbed by the female's body. The caterpillars feed on plants of the cabbage family. Orange tip flies in spring along hedgerows, riverbanks and woodland edges. The eggs are laid singly, often on garlic mustard or cuckoo flower, and the caterpillars feed on the developing seed pods, which they come to resemble as an excellent camouflage. The orange wings of the male serve as a warning to predators, as the body contains distasteful mustard oils taken up from the food plant by the caterpillar. Speckled Wood, a widespread butterfly in lowland Moray which prefers the dappled shade of open woodland. First arrived in Moray around 1980, following a major spread eastwards from Argyll. 2 generations of adults fly between May and September, but individual adults seldom live longer than a week. The males perch in sunlit spots from which they chase away other males or court females which are attracted to the pools of sunlight. Dark Green Fritillary, found in flower-rich grassland, bracken-covered hillsides and coastal dunes, common in Moray from late June through to August. The males spend much of every warm day on the wing, searching for hidden females. The caterpillars feed on the leaves of violets before hibernating and forming a chrysalis in late spring. Scotch Argus, abundant in some areas of Moray, in upland grasslands and sunny rides and coastal forests. Large numbers are usually only seen flying in sunny weather. Their flight season is very short, mainly in August. They spend about 10 months of their lives as a caterpillar before briefly forming a chrysalis in June and emerging as a butterfly shortly afterwards. Northern brown argus forms colonies on sheltered, grassy hillsides which contain the caterpillar's preferred food plant, rock rose. Very scarce in Moray, with only a few records, mostly on Speyside and in the Tom and Towel area. Adults fly in June and July and are often extremely sedentary, moving only 20 to 30 metres from the hatching site in their lifetime. Red Admiral, a very familiar migrant butterfly from southern Europe. Immigrants normally arrive in late May and June, producing a local brood from early August onwards. Visits gardens in late summer to feed on buddleia and rotten fruit. The caterpillars are solitary, feeding on fresh nettle leaves. The chrysalis is suspended under vegetation, where it may be attacked by parasitic wasps which lay their eggs in it. Most adults return south in autumn. Meadow Brown, a very common species found in grasslands throughout Moray, with the exception of the higher hills. A single generation of adults flies between June and September. The dots on the wings may deflect bird attacks away from the body so that the butterfly can escape with no more than a piece of wing pecked off. Females generally mate on the first active day of their lives and lay eggs within 4 days. They live for little more than a week. Green Hairstreak, recorded at only a few sites in Moray on heathland or moorland which contains the caterpillar's food plants, blaeberry, gorse or vetches. The adults, which fly in May and June, are green only on the underside, to provide camouflage when the butterfly perches with its wings closed. In late summer, the caterpillar forms a chrysalis, which hibernates in an ant's nest. It produces secretions on which the ants feed, and they in turn protect the chrysalis.